Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Let me just say this. If you've ever felt the gut punch of being present in a moment you were never meant to witness, you'll understand what I'm about to say. It all started with a laugh. Not just any laugh, the kind that's sharp, real, and cuts through a room like a spotlight. We were in the car, driving home from some overblown corporate thing she dragged me to. I wasn't bitter about going. I'd gotten used to being background noise at her events. A placeholder. Someone to fill the empty seat beside her while she dazzled the room. But that laugh? It wasn't mine. It wasn't hers, either. Not the polite chuckle she gives when someone compliments her shoes. Not the laugh she used when I slipped on ice outside our first apartment. Not even the one she reserves for old episodes of The Office. This one was different. Wild. Free. Private. And it came from the back seat. Only, there was no one in the back seat. Just her phone, lying face down, screen glowing through a cracked case. A voice message, still playing. And her fingers, frozen mid-scroll, like even she hadn't meant to hear it aloud. God, I miss that sound, the man's voice said, through the speakers. You always did laugh like trouble. She fumbled for the phone like it burned. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. Her silence told me everything I needed to know. We drove the next 10 miles without speaking. She kept her eyes on the window, and I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went numb. My ears rang louder than the wind outside. When we finally got home, she walked straight to the bathroom and turned the shower on. Didn't even look at me. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the fridge door like it held answers. On it were two magnets, one shaped like a pineapple from our honeymoon in Maui, and another that read, "Trust is earned, not given." I don't even remember when we bought that one. Maybe it was a joke at the time. But now it feels like a lie she left on display, hoping I'd never really look at it. I haven't said a word. Not yet. But I replay that laugh every night when she's asleep beside me, dreaming in the same bed where I no longer belong. I didn't sleep that night. Not a second. I lay there, eyes wide open, listening to the rhythm of her breath next to me. Steady, peaceful, like nothing had shifted in the world. Like her little mistake on the car ride home hadn't sliced through the illusion I'd been clinging to for years. And yet, I didn't confront her. I didn't scream or demand answers or pack a bag. I just stayed. Because that's what I do. I stay. I freeze. I overthink. I convince myself that maybe it's not what it seems, even when it clearly is. Around 3:47 a.m., I quietly slipped out of bed, crept into the living room, and opened my laptop. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, just some thread to pull. Something she forgot to hide. Some accidental truth. And I found it. Not even encrypted, not even cleverly named. Just a folder on our shared cloud drive labeled Event Planning. She had moved most of her files to her personal drive months ago, said her company wanted to keep things separate. But this she'd missed. I opened it expecting calendars or mood boards or maybe guest lists. Instead, I found a series of screenshots, messages between her and Emerson PR. That was the name saved. But it didn't take a genius to know it wasn't just work. They weren't even trying to be subtle. Can't stop thinking about your dress at the Marriott. You look like you wanted me to pull you away from everyone. Don't act like that wasn't the plan all along. My hands started shaking. My cursor hovered over each message like touching them would burn. There were voice notes, too. Short ones. Low laughter. Heavy breathing. One ended with him saying her name, whispering it like a promise. I didn't even cry. That was the worst part. No tears. No yelling. Just this sick, hollow ache in my chest like something had died quietly while no one was watching. At 6 a.m., she came into the living room wrapped in her robe, rubbing her eyes. She asked why I was up so early. I looked at her, really looked at her. Same tousled hair. Same sleepy smile. And I said, just couldn't sleep. She nodded, kissed my cheek, and went to make coffee. That kiss felt radioactive. And yet, I said nothing. Again, I closed the laptop, stood there in silence, and tried to remember the last time she looked at me like I mattered. Not out of guilt, not out of routine, just real, honest affection. And I couldn't find it. But what she didn't know was that I'd already downloaded everything. Every screenshot, every note, every trace of Emerson's voice. And for the first time in months, I had a plan. Not revenge. Not yet. Just clarity. Because sometimes, before everything shatters, you need to see how many cracks were already there. It was the small things that started screaming the loudest. The next morning, as she hummed in the kitchen like she hadn't just shattered our world into tiny digital fragments, I sat across from her pretending to scroll through emails. I wasn't reading. I was watching. Watching how naturally she moved, how she bit her lip when pouring coffee, how she added 2 sugars to mine like always. It was like watching a perfect actress play a role I used to believe was real. She handed me the mug and kissed the top of my head like I was a pet. And just as I forced a smile, her phone buzzed. I didn't look up, but my ears perked. She flipped its screen down almost instantly. I counted 5 seconds of hesitation before she said, "It's just Jules from work. She's freaking out about a pitch." But her tone didn't match the words. Her voice wobbled, barely, and that's when I knew. She was lying to me out of habit now. She didn't even flinch doing it. I waited for her to leave for her Pilates class. I watched from the window as she pulled out of the driveway, and the second she turned the corner, I bolted upstairs and pulled out the spare phone I'd hidden inside an old box of winter scarves. It was mine, an old Android I hadn't touched in a year, but it still worked. I had already synced her cloud messages to it in case she changed her password. I sat on the edge of our bed, scrolling, breathing like I'd run a mile in January. And there it was. A new message. Same time tonight. I can't stop thinking about your legs under that table. Under that table. I stared at that sentence for a full minute. Suddenly, the memory hit me. At the dinner 2 nights ago, there had been a long white tablecloth. She'd laughed more than usual, reached for her wine more often than she does around coworkers. I thought she was just having a good night. But apparently, someone else's hands had been on her under the table, inches from where I sat. My stomach turned. That night, when she came home from Pilates, her cheeks were pink from the cold and her hair slightly damp, like she had showered somewhere else. She tossed her bag down, gave me the same warm grin, and said, "You wouldn't believe how hard that class was." I asked her, "Do they serve wine at Pilates now?" She froze, just long enough. "Excuse me," I said. "You smell like Pinot Noir." She laughed it off, said someone spilled some during a celebration toast after class. I nodded, said nothing. Again. But the next morning, something strange happened. Her phone alarm went off while she was in the shower. Only, it wasn't the tone she usually used. This one was sharp, fast, like a calendar alert. I picked up the phone and looked. Reminder, book Emerson's room, 6 p.m. She had forgotten to silence it. I stared at it until it disappeared. Then I put the phone back exactly how I found it. I didn't tell her. I didn't confront her. I just smiled when she came out of the bathroom and said she looked beautiful. Because now I wasn't just watching. I was waiting. I waited 3 days. Not out of patience. Trust me, there was nothing patient about the way I paced the hallway at night or reread those messages like they were written in flames. I waited because I needed to be sure. I needed confirmation that went beyond screenshots and suspicions. And thanks to that poorly timed phone alarm, I had a location, Emerson's hotel. The same one downtown where she used to host charity events back when things between us still felt like a team effort. I called the front desk under a fake name, told them I had lost a coat there, and wanted to check their camera system for the day I might have visited. The woman on the line was friendly, overly helpful, and completely unaware that she was about to change someone's life. She put me on hold, came back 3 minutes later, and said, "Sir, you were checked in last Thursday under the name Leclerc. The reservation was made by a woman named Eloise." She said my wife's name like it was the most ordinary thing in the world, like she hadn't just shattered the last bit of denial I was clinging to. I drove there the next day. No plan, no script, just rage and heartbreak tangled together in my chest, like wires sparking under pressure. When I pulled into the parking garage, I saw her car. Not parked in guest parking, but valet, like she was a regular, like she belonged there. I walked in through the side entrance and waited in the lobby, pretending to look at the flower arrangements while watching every elevator ding. 10 minutes passed, then 20, and then, there she was. Eloise stepped out of the elevator, sunglasses on, hair tied back like she was running errands on a Sunday morning. Except it was Tuesday, and she was supposed to be working remotely from home. I followed her, quietly. She walked past the cafe, gave a casual nod to one of the bellhops, and turned into the hallway leading to the private conference rooms. I stayed back, ducked behind a marble pillar, and watched her knock on one of the doors. It opened, just a crack. "Emerson." He looked exactly like I remembered, taller than me, smug, the kind of guy who tucks in his shirt just to make you feel underdressed. He smiled, pulled her in fast, and shut the door. I stood there, staring at that door, wondering if this was the moment I finally exploded. But I didn't. I left. I walked straight to the front desk and asked if they had room availability for next weekend. I needed a reason to get closer, to dig deeper. The clerk handed me a brochure with their event packages, and as she flipped through it, I glanced down at the reservation screen on her monitor. I caught one line before she minimized the window. Room 417, blocked. E. Leclerc/E.R. Martin. 2 names. Hers and his. Booked every Tuesday and Thursday for the next 3 weeks. I thanked her, walked out, and sat in my car for 30 minutes. Didn't start it. Didn't cry. Just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. And for the first time in all of this, I realized something chilling. It wasn't an affair. It was a routine. I knew what I had to do the moment I saw that booking screen. Room 417. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Her and Emerson. It wasn't some spontaneous mistake or heat-of-the-moment lapse. It was a schedule, a calendar entry, a commitment, like the one she used to have with me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch something. But all I did was press my thumb harder into the armrest of the driver's seat until it left a deep, red dent. The next day, I called the hotel from a new number and booked room 416 under a fake name. I requested a specific date, next Thursday, and asked, politely, if it was possible to get a room with a connecting door for convenience. They said they'd do their best. I didn't care if it connected or not. I just wanted to be close enough to hear, to know, to confirm. Even after everything I'd seen, some irrational, desperate part of me still needed absolute proof. The kind that could whisper, "This really is happening," in case my gut hadn't screamed it loud enough. Thursday came like a storm. I checked in wearing a ball cap and hoodie, avoiding eye contact, hands shaking as I signed the fake name. I went up to the room around 4:45 p.m., sat on the edge of the bed in 416, and waited. The walls were thin, cheap drywall with that fake luxury feel. I could hear the elevator ding, the occasional room service cart, someone's TV humming low in the distance. Then, just after 6 p.m., I heard laughter. Hers. Eloise. My wife. She was in the hallway, talking to someone. I couldn't make out the words at first, just the tone. Playful, flirty, full of life. A tone she hadn't used with me in months. A tone I thought was gone. And then I heard his voice, muffled but unmistakable. Emerson. The door to 417 closed with a soft click. Then it was quiet. Too quiet. That kind of quiet that makes your heart race because you know it's not innocent. I pressed my ear to the wall, hands sweating. Then I heard it. A low laugh. A shoe hitting the floor, the creak of the bed. I wanted to break through the wall. I wanted to pound my fists and scream, "I'm here. I know." But I didn't. I stood there, listening to the sound of my marriage burning down just inches away. After maybe 20 minutes, I couldn't take it. I needed to see. Not just hear. I slipped out of my room, heart thudding against my ribs, and walked down the hall. I waited until the cleaning lady stepped out of the supply closet and then said, "Hi, sorry." I locked myself out. Room 417. My wife's inside, but probably in the shower. I smiled awkwardly, like a forgetful idiot. She nodded and handed me a spare keycard. I didn't believe it would work, but it did. I slid the card into the door of 417 and pushed it open an inch, just enough. I didn't even have to step inside. There they were, on the bed, half-dressed, her hand on his chest, his lips near her neck. They were laughing about something, not kissing, not tearing clothes off, just comfortable, relaxed, like they did this every week. I backed away before they saw me, closed the door softly. I returned the key card to the cleaning cart, walked back to my room, and sat in silence. Not because I was afraid, not because I didn't want to fight, but because in that moment, I realized they weren't cheating. They were living. And I was the one who had been left behind a long time ago. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I sat in the parking garage of the hotel with the engine running, listening to the low hum of the ventilation system and wondering how long you could sit still before your own thoughts crushed you from the inside. It wasn't the image of them together that haunted me most. It was the sound of their laughter. Real, effortless, private. The same way she used to laugh with me before everything turned mechanical. When I finally drove off, it wasn't toward home. I ended up in a 24-hour diner I hadn't been to in years. I ordered coffee I didn't drink and stared out the window while my phone lit up with a message from Eloise. Hey babe, working late again tonight. Don't wait up, yellow heart. That heart emoji nearly made me choke. She didn't know I had seen everything. That I stood 10 feet away from the life she was living behind my back. That I could describe the way Emerson's fingers traced the curve of her shoulder. That I knew how she smiled when she wasn't pretending. The next morning, I came home early, before sunrise. She wasn't back yet. No note. No apology. No panic. Just a coffee cup in the sink and her phone charger left hanging on the edge of the nightstand. I stared at it for a long time, then picked it up and placed it neatly in the drawer. I wanted her to know I'd been in the room, that I was still watching. By the time she walked through the front door, wearing the same coat from the night before and smelling faintly of hotel soap, I was already seated at the dining table. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. She froze. Not the kind of freeze that says, I'm guilty. It was worse. It was the kind that says, he knows. Morning, she said softly. Setting down her purse like this was just another Thursday. You left the bedroom light on, I said. She blinked. What? You always turn it off. But last night, it was on. And the door was cracked. You never leave it open like that. She opened her mouth, closed it, then laughed nervously. Maybe I was just tired. No, I said calmly. You were somewhere else. I know where. Her face drained of color. She didn't ask how I knew. She didn't deny it. She just stood there, like a glitch in the middle of a collapsing program. I saw you, Eloise. I saw both of you. That's when she sat down across from me and whispered, How much did you see? Not I'm sorry. Not this isn't what you think. Just how much? I saw enough to know this wasn't some accident, I said. You're not sorry. You're just surprised I found out. And then, this is the part one still replay every hour. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't even look ashamed. She said, I didn't know how to tell you. You've been gone for a long time too, Mason. Just not physically. That hit harder than anything I saw in that hotel room. Because in a twisted way, she was right. I had withdrawn. I had stopped asking questions. Stopped noticing things. But I didn't cheat. I didn't build a second life. You could have talked to me, I said. I tried, she whispered. But you weren't listening. And then she left the room. No slam of the door. No dramatic exit. Just footsteps fading down the hall. But I had one move left. Something I hadn't told her. When I left the hotel, I didn't just walk out. I left the door slightly open. And I left behind a letter. I knew she'd find it. I left it folded on the corner of the bed, just inside the room. Room 417, where they'd made a second life out of silence and betrayal. I made sure it was the first thing she'd see if she walked in ahead of him. Not hidden. Not dramatic. Just there, like the truth waiting to be acknowledged. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even angry. Just a single page, handwritten, my pen shaking so hard the letters slanted in places. But I needed her to read it. I needed him to read it too. To whoever opens this. I was here. I stood in this room. I watched you. I saw what this was, what it's been for weeks, maybe months. You didn't lose me. You replaced me. And for the first time, I'm not asking why. I'm just done pretending I don't know. I hope whatever you're building here feels better than the home you left behind. I didn't stick around to see what would happen when she found it. But I didn't have to wait long. Friday evening, less than 24 hours later, she came home early. That alone told me something was off. She was never home before 7. But at 5:12 p.m., I heard the garage door roll up and her boots on the tile. I was sitting on the couch, laptop open but untouched, when she walked in. She looked different. Not panicked, calm. Steady. Like someone about to deliver a speech they've been rehearsing all day. She stood in front of me holding the letter. It was folded once, then twice. Now smooth flat like she'd read it a dozen times. You went into the room, she said. I nodded. I did. Her eyes flicked toward the floor. You wrote this knowing he'd see it too? Yes. There was a long silence, the kind that weighs more than any shouting ever could. He read it, she said finally. And he asked me what I was going to do now. I didn't respond. She took a breath. I told him I needed to talk to you. That I owed you that much. I stood up slowly, not out of anger, but because I couldn't sit still anymore. You don't owe me anything, Eloise. Let's not pretend this is about debt, or fairness, or repair. Her eyes shimmered for the first time. I didn't think you'd actually see it through. You've always backed down before anything got real. That stung more than I expected. Because again, she wasn't wrong. I had always been the one to absorb the hit, smooth it over, hold it together. The one who'd rather eat the tension than risk confrontation. But not this time. This isn't about revenge, I said. This is about honesty. And now you have a choice. Him. Me. Neither. Just pick. But don't smile at me in the mornings if your heart's in another man's bed. Her face cracked, just slightly. A flicker of guilt, or loss, or maybe fear. I haven't made my decision yet, she whispered. I don't want to lie anymore, but I don't want to lose everything either. You already have, I said. You just haven't felt it yet. And then I walked out of the room, left her standing there with the letter in her hands, and the weight of 2 lives crushing down on her shoulders. She thought the hardest part was hiding the affair, but it wasn't. The hardest part was realizing I finally saw her for who she really was. And this time, I wouldn't unsee it. The strange thing about endings is that they never arrive how or when you expect them. You imagine explosions, screaming, some cinematic moment of finality. But sometimes, endings are just quiet. Like the gentle click of a door you won't open again. 3 days passed after our conversation. We didn't talk. We moved through the house like ghosts. She cooked dinner. I washed dishes. The rhythm was familiar, but the meaning was gone. The home we built had become a museum, filled with things we couldn't touch without shattering. Then, on Sunday morning, she walked into the kitchen holding a single suitcase. I'm going to stay with my sister, she said. No anger, no sadness, just a tired honesty that I almost didn't recognize. Not because I'm choosing him. Not yet. I just need space to remember who I was before all this. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I believed her. Not in the way I used to trust her unconditionally, but in the way you believe someone who's finally stopped pretending. I won't wait forever, I said. She nodded. I know. And then she was gone. But that wasn't the end. The end came weeks later, after the silence had settled, after I remembered how to laugh at something stupid on TV again, after I started going on walks without checking my phone. That's when it hit me. The twist wasn't what she did. The twist was that I survived it. I didn't fall apart. I didn't disappear. I rebuilt myself. Quietly. Slowly. On my terms. One afternoon, I found a letter waiting on the doorstep. No name. Just my initials on the front. Inside it read, "You were never the problem. You were the mirror I avoided. Thank you for finally holding it up." There was no signature. But I didn't need one. I didn't reply. I didn't call. Because closure doesn't always come from someone else. Sometimes, you write it yourself. So yeah, that's my story. Was I weak? Maybe. Did I wait too long to stand up for myself? Probably. But I did stand up. And that's what matters. If you've ever had a moment in life where you knew the truth before it was spoken, or a time when you quietly took back your power, drop it in the comments below. What would you have done differently if you were me? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your story too. You never know who needs to hear it. Thanks for listening. You're on the Reddit Confessions channel.